All right. All right. BlaKBox Radio. We are in the box. We're here. We're live. We're black and we're back. This is the Black Woman History Month. Let me tell you guys something. It is National Women History Month in the States. And BlaKBox Radio, we always tweak that thing. It always has to present black. So we're going to celebrate Black women this month. We had the first of the month, we had Brother Anson. He had a Black Queen exhibit. That's the only way he sneaked into the month because he was celebrating Black queens, and we wanted to make sure that that was the beginning. But from henceforth, for the next 2 weeks, we got the Power Six. We got 6 Black women who are doing amazing things in their spaces. 6, y'all. 6 Black women who are doing amazing things in their space, who are just amazing people who really love our community, the Black community. And more than anything, they love and invest in themselves. So that means a lot. I am Queen. I'm a Black woman, of course, and I always celebrate my sisters. I'm a host at BlaKBox Radio. We are a multimedia platform illustrating Black excellence. We platform Black people, we expose Black genius, and we disseminate information to the Black community and other communities also. So, guys, I want you to hang with us every month. We're doing about 68 pieces a month, and it's all Black people. It's all Black stuff. It's Black language. It's Black swag. We unapologetically Black. That's what we do. That's what we be. And that's what we're going to do tonight. So I want you guys to chill, sit back, because I got somebody for you. She's brilliant, y'all. She's brilliant. she love to talk. She is going to bring it tonight. She love to talk. She good at this, y'all. She is good at this. I got Dr. Kimya Nuru Dennis. Say hi to the people, sis.
Hey people, hope you're doing well.
So listen, I am just so excited. First to start the series, you are the jump off. So it's always good to really like your jump off. So I am so happy to start this with you, the start of the 6th, and to just being 2 Black women who really love our community. That's 1st. We love our people, and also, other than that, we exchange ideas, and I really like that about you. So I want you to kind of tell the people who you are, where you're from, and then we're going to get into like your work and what you do. But who is Kimya?
All right, so Kimya Nuru Dennis is a community advocate, sociologist and criminologist, educator, researcher, born and raised in Richmond, Virginia. And then I lived in North Carolina for 17 years, and I've been in Baltimore since 2019. And the work I do is local, national, and global community-based education, health work, showing Africans how to change schools beyond conceptually, theoretically, ideally changing, and how to change medical and health organizations, facilities, and services, and also workforce development, all these different factors that connect. And of course, we'll talk about all that more, because a lot of times Black folks ask me, well, how does this connect? And we've literally, Black folks have talked about this connection as it pertains to race for 5 centuries now. We've been the trailblazers regarding racial justice.
Yep.
So I need us to stop asking questions when Black folks have led this for 5 centuries on Western Hemisphere and parts of the world. So we've got to now stop asking questions, because those are time wasters. Now it's like, what are the actions going on? And we'll talk about that more.
So you're saying that it's time to applicate. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. A lot of times when we're in a situation, I think that we want someone to bring it to us, and it's no one gonna make us free. We got to do it ourselves, and it's a process though. We're used to this thing called America, and I tell folks, if you want something different, you got to divorce some of what America brings to the table. What do you think about that?
So it depends on the issue. So this is the intentional design to distract our people, to convince our people to not understand the difference between collaborations and being controlled. So that's where I always explain the meaning of collaboration. You cannot collaborate with people if they want to be in control. Like, you're complaining about them being in control of you on the first end, but then you're pretending you're collaborating with them when they are in control in the funding and how the change is happening.
That's so true.
They're in control of what research you're using. They're in control of what's presented in the schools and the curriculum. They are in control of what type of medical and health information is used. And they say that their control is to help us. So that's the savior syndrome that also is insulting to thousands of years of African knowledges and insulting to 5 centuries regarding race of the racial categorization of now that's Blackness. And of course, racial categorization was not created on Western Hemisphere. That's one thing I always have to tell Black people around the world. It was created by Europeans who became racially categorized as white. It was created for the trade market. It was created for colonialism based in European form of colonialism, which is thousands of years after Arab colonialism. It's based on Christian missionaries who are not the only religious dominance in parts of the world, and based on, of course, transatlantic slavery, that economic system that developed from that. So whenever people say, USA, y'all always talking about race, you have to tell people, since people are not learning this in 99% of academic programs in K through 12 around the world, you got to explain the origins of racial categories. Those origins are not on Western Hemisphere. They're not on the stolen land that became United States of America. So we are not the first people to address race. We're not the only people. Even if people don't say they have a racial identity, that does not mean there's not racial disparities and injustices happening. So you can't say Black people are picking apart problems that don't exist, and then when something happens to you, you want us to fight with you. Great is like, you told us we was imagining stuff. And so that's why I always highlight, you have to know the origins. That's why I tell Black folks, do not use false terms like Caucasian. That is not based on mountains. It's based on the origins of racial categories of Caucasoid, Negroid, Mongoloid. So I teach sociology of race and ethnic relations for almost 20 years now. Don't call white people Caucasian if you don't want to be called Negroid. And don't tell me Caucasian came from Caucasoid Mountains. Caucasus Mountain.
That's what they say, sis. That's how they got the blue hair and the blue eyes, excuse me, and the loose hair from the mountains.
No. Race is not biological. Race is not based on biochemistry. It's a construction of putting hundreds of thousands of years of people around the world into categories, like a narrow set of categories for the purpose of stealing, killing, owning for a global trade that still exists. And so this is just one thing I explain and how that manifests now when Black folks use outdated terminologies that are not based on factual information.
Terminology is important. And y'all should know we didn't make the color chart. And the color chart has no genetic disposition. It is color, white, yellow, black. It's not real. So you're saying that if we call somebody Caucasoid, we got to be fine with Negroid. Is that what you said?
Yeah, if you don't want to be called Negroid and you don't want the terminology Mongoloid, then you can't say Caucasoid. You can't believe that the Caucasoid and Caucasian category exists if the rest of them don't exist. And I have, more than a decade of teaching race and ethnic relations to Black students. And if you believe that it is 5 centuries of medical racism, scientific racism, when white people present skull shapes and head shapes claiming that that's a sign of criminality and compares to apes, then you cannot believe in things like sun people, ice people, and other non-proven standards that pretend that this is a way to define a racial identity of people. Even if it's celebrating Black folks, it's still false. And it's still based on all groups of people trying to make sense of something. And just because it makes sense out of convenience does not mean it's based on facts. So that's why I tell Black folks, I can't stop what people believe, but what I can stop is people pretending it's 100% fact and then perpetuating falsehoods in my vicinity. Like, you can do that at home, but once you get into my spaces, whether it's in my classrooms or in my community programs and events and public spaces where I talk about public policy, those falsehoods, keep them at the door.
Ooh.
Because we talk about making some real changes that doesn't have conspiracy theories. It doesn't have cult followings. It has real changes based on progress for our people. And this is constant progress for the remainder of human existence, not based on one meeting, not based on one legislative inaction, not based on one election. It's a constant procedure for the rest of human existence.
10 minutes, you done drop all them facts on us. Lord have mercy.
Oh, really? Well,
it's been 10 minutes and you done fact us up. Lord have mercy. Listen, let me ask you a question. Let's dial back a little bit because you heavy. I told y'all she heavy, y'all. She coming on. She's blazing. She putting us in that socialist theory. But let me ask you a question first. Let's slow it down a little. Woo. How did you get to? Okay, so you're Kimya Nuru Dennis. That's what you're born as. How did you get towards PhD? How did we get to this point where you became this teacher? And I hear that you're so knowledgeable. I love it. I love Black women who throw that knowledge down. So how did we get here?
Well, one day I was just walking down the street. I saw school in front of me. No. So I have a background, of course, being African. I am on this Western Hemisphere and on this stolen land that became the United States of America because of transatlantic slavery.
Yes.
So centuries of my family, mostly in the Carolinas, mostly South Carolina. So centuries of sharecroppers after transatlantic slavery, sharecroppers, farmers, some religious leaders in the family, educators, medical and health professionals, community advocates. So I was raised by parents who are pro-Black, very knowledgeable regarding Pan-Africanism, Black nationalism, and they required my three brothers and me, all four of us, we're products of Richmond, predominantly Black Richmond public schools. They required us to read, to learn, to watch Tony Brown's Journal, to watch BET News back when there was actually news and it was Black owned. So we did not rely on even Black schools because we knew Black schools only go based on non-Black accreditors and politicians. And they'll show us eyes on the prize in the 80s without really changing the curriculum and materials. And so we were taught to learn in a way that we could challenge the teachers if need be. So went through that. Then I went to college, spreading knowledge. No, went to college.
Bars too. I love it.
Well, actually, I am a lyricist. My first goal was to become a singer and a rapper. So I'm classically trained piano and harp. So I was part of a Black harp group since second grade. Shout out to Mrs. Williams, Black woman harpist, rest in peace, passed away many years ago. But Mrs. Williams, Black woman, had a Black harp group that we formed, that Mrs. Williams formed and added me when I was in second grade. So that's my initial goal, was actually going to music. And so, and that's why my students and people will tell you I put music in as much as possible, in art in general, because that's just, music is just, everything I say, there's a lyric, even if I don't say it, it just depends on where I am, because I'm not going to entertain the oppressors by being musical. But for our people, sometimes I'll put some music, some visual art in there, just depends on what I'm doing. So when I went to college, I had to change my scope because—
Where was that? Where'd you go to college?
Who knows?
Ooh. Okay.
People can find out. People can find out. So
now,
when I went to college—
college in this area. Did you go to college in Maryland or this area?
No, I didn't move to Maryland until 2019. So yes, I stayed in Richmond, Virginia, where I'm from. I moved to North Carolina in 2002 to get my doctorate. So when I went to college and then my master's degree, that was my first time actually being around non-Black people like that. Because, product of predominantly Black Richmond public schools, Black family. And so it just really changed my views on a lot of things. in terms of what I will and will not accept, in terms of knowledge-based.
Mm-hmm.
And initially, I wanted to become an attorney. So I actually worked at a law school dean's office during the O.J. Simpson trial. And when I saw the crying deans of the university during when he was acquitted, it let me know I wanted to go into criminal justice and not into law school. So that's when I went and got a master's in criminal justice. And then I moved to North Carolina in 2002 to start my doctorate. And then in 2004 is when I started teaching college students, and I also started doing work regarding Black suicide. So that's when I started qualitative research. And then a few years from that, I started my dissertation, which is also Black suicide, and that's quantitative. So that's more combining numerical data. And so I do mostly qualitative research now. So all of these just really, it's just an example of how you develop what you're interested in doing, how Black people regarding race we have centuries of having to accommodate, having to tolerate, having to accept. We can look at it in terms of Dr. Anna Julia Cooper, when Dr. Cooper wrote about A Voice from the South, in which Dr. Cooper, who's a sociologist, wrote about Black women in the South and those dueling identities. And then, of course, that was a few years before Dr. W.B. Du Bois's Souls Black Folks, and that's the whole double consciousness. So we have different, and of course, Dr. Du Bois is a sociologist and criminologist, one of the first well-known Black sociologists and criminologists, also Pan-African. And so these are examples of what Black people have presented in terms of knowledge and having to wear different hats. So you can look at Paul Laurence Dunbar, this notion of what does it mean to be in these different areas. And so experiencing all of that and being in these different areas just let me know what my deal breakers are.
Okay.
Let me know what I've put up with, what I've tolerated, being on board of directors, health board of directors. And this is just one thing I explain to African/Black people. We put forth a lot of hard work and determination. We're not a lazy, unintelligent people. We have more than a century of writing proposals to police departments, medical and health organizations and facilities, schools, all this work to demand changes. So when the changes don't happen, it's not that we haven't tried. And so these experiences that I've had just really showed me how to know with whom I can collaborate to do work and with whom I should not. I'm not stopping what they're doing, but I just know that it's not to the benefit of the people they claim to help. So that's the quick rundown of my background, and that rhymed as well. And so
you got bars all night. I love it. Because when you put community advocate, sociologist, criminologist, educator, researcher. Wow, you do a lot. How?
Amazing.
That's amazing. That's definitely amazing.
We just keep doing work. We keep doing work. Most of it for Black folks, most of it, it's money out of our own pocket, because as you know, when we talk about fundraisers, grant funds, anything, we know that unfortunately most of the people providing funds are not our people. So that's a way that we have to keep finding a way to present this, because when the funders are not our people, it changes the scope, because the funders eventually will want it to look like what they want it to look like. They'll start off saying, we'll provide funds and you do whatever you need to do. Yeah. But I promise people everywhere around the world, eventually the funders change their voice.
Exactly. Yes.
Especially
the funding always has some attachments.
Yes.
And there's, and that's, but it's, the sad thing I see so much about funding is the folks who are funding are usually the folks who were the problem. or are the problem. So it seems to me that the money is getting rechanneled into what we would say the nonprofit complex, and then to either their friends, and they're just washing their taxes off of their money and applying it with standards that that really they were the ones who did the breakdown. It's, to me, it's so hypocritical. It's incestuous to a point, and the problems are still abound. And I don't know if we're really solving issues more than channeling money in different places.
Yeah. And so that's just one of those things. You don't want to seem like you're always complaining.
No, you don't.
Because instead people are like, well, what are you doing then? What are you doing? What are you doing? So we understand that there are well-funded organizations that they receive a lot of funds. So therefore, community, they'll need that money.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, and that's why I just tell Black folk, you know, we can complain, but what we gonna do?
Oh, you better know it. What we gonna do? We got to set up resources and income streams for our programs and for our community. That's what it is. If you're begging someone else, expect for them to have some type of requirement. Is, you know, never, you can't go to the bank and say to the bank, I just want the money. They know they want some interest on that joint. So it's always in a requirement. So we want different. We got to start being the funder. Am I right?
That's right. In terms of idea wise. So then the next question usually is going to be, how do we make sure that is more likely to happen? And so there are instances where that does work in terms of having wonderful community programs, having events locally in Baltimore City, as also some events in every city, every state. The disappointment is when you're like, yes, it worked, and then it doesn't again, right? And so that's one thing that I ask Black people who form organizations. We have to understand that nonprofit are not always trustworthy, especially once they start getting wealthy. Then you really want an audit. I tell Black people the empowerment of our people is not a theoretical fight the power. Fight the power, fight the power. Is not just going around pretending to be public enemy. It's literally, we need data. We need evidence. So if a police department that, we know police departments are not doing anything good in that sense, and there's no such thing as good cop. However, if they insist on claiming that the extra government funds that they keep getting are being spent on local nonprofits, now I need an audit. I need an audit. Black folks now need an audit that Baltimore Police Department is really spending the money in the city in a way that's helping Black people, that's not based on the 1033 program of getting military gear for the police department. That's not based on giving money to a nonprofit that's claiming to reduce violence, but that's not being done because you're taking money from schools, you're taking money from workforce development programs, because guess what? If all the money for schools and workforce development programs and health programs goes into government, mayor's office programs, that's an intentional design for the government to control you. I always tell Black folks, we cannot rely on police and politicians, no matter the race and ethnicity of the people who represent police and politicians. The money has to be in our families, in our communities. In our communities includes resources that we need to provide as a foundation before our children even go to school. So even if folks are so busy working one job, two jobs, three jobs, the time that folks have to be texting and on social media, because that does happen for many people, spend that time telling that child to get off that device and read 5 pages of this book before they go to sleep. And I know people want to get mad, but literally we have centuries of Black folks saying, this is what we can do for ourselves and each other. And this is how we're going to provide those resources instead of relying on the people that we complain about.
All I agree with that. I agree with that audit. Let's
Yeah.
audit it up.
I don't believe anything that police and politicians and medical and health professionals, I specialize in health.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tell all of these decision makers, I tell school officials, including Black school officials, superintendents and teachers, including Black folks who are in these careers, prove it. I don't want to see a hashtag about a book that you have in your class. I don't care that you're mad at DeSantis banning a book. Because if you're mad about a book ban, that means you are too scared to make anybody mad because you are afraid that you won't have a job to pay your bills. I don't care about anyone banning a book. All these books I have in my home office, you think it matters that these books are banned in the school? We were taught that if the book is banned, that's even more reason for us to
get it
and walk up in it.
You better go get it. It's a reason. Yeah.
The oppressors they've prepared for 5 centuries for us to run up in school board meetings yelling. They prepared for centuries for us marching down streets, ready to scream at police. They prepared for 5 centuries, even when the topic is economic struggles and classism. They prepared for Black folks to be mad and irate because they know that we've been brainwashed to get away from the knowledge, the readings, the spreading of factual information with each other, so that you can ban that book, but guess what? Our whole community has it now. And we're going to bring it to school. We're going to mention it in class discussions. Oh, you're going to kick us all out of school? Let's see that happening. And we don't have to call Attorney Ben Crump either.
No, they want that federal dollars. That ain't happening.
We don't have to be on news stations. We don't have to be on MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, all these news stations to get attention. Black folks have been doing this work for centuries. Black radicalism, Black nationalism, also African nationalism. This stuff existed long before the 2016 outrage that people are trying to have, long before the 2020 outrage people are trying to have. People come to me, they were like, Dr. Dennis, how do you feel about this news story? Nothing. Because I don't decide my actions and my approach for my people based on a hot topic, a hashtag on social media. I don't need anyone's opinion for when something's important for my people. I don't need white liberals and white progressives to say, yo, this is a really important topic. If it's important to you all, that means you've ignored centuries of Black folks talking about this. You've ignored centuries of Black folks talking about health issues, talking about the police, not just killing us, but disappearing until we need them. And then when we need them, conveniently taking a long time to get there, to punish us for demanding more from them.
You're dropping dimes all over the box tonight.
I'm just saying. So this is why I tell Black folks, we don't have to keep talking about this. Literally, Black folks have said the same thing for centuries now. And this is why when I do workshops and everything, I'm like, what are we going to do to change some things? Because the oppressors, and I can detail who they are. If people are hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, led abroad, and confused. But the oppressors, they want us to have something where we just talk about the problems instead of the outcomes. But we actually have Africans, our people around the world, including in Baltimore City, who've invested their time, their career, their lives, their health, their families on actually doing real work. And these people are not famous. They're not New York Times bestseller Anna Julia Cooper, 1619 Project. Black folks, do not celebrate New York Times bestseller books if you have not read the original 1619 Project book that came out generations ago.
Like, whoa.
Don't celebrate any of these materials.
Like, whoa. You coming, Dr. Kimya. You coming. Everett Winchester put in the chat, he put, one must never stop reading. Read everything that you can. That is the standard of knowledge.
Thank you, brother.
That's Marcus Garvey right there, y'all.
That's right. UNIA.
Right there. UNIA. Read. We have to read. We're not reading. And, when people say they're reading, they go to Google. Or they're reading, these ebooks too. The ebook joint is big now. And so technology has circumvented our way of actually going after knowledge. And I promise you, the good books you can't get on any ebook. I promise you, the book that's going to make you great, that ain't going to be an ebook, most likely.
So I do want to challenge that notion there. There are some Africans who have put entire books, scanned it, and it's now available online. So I am part of many Pan-Africans locally, nationally, and
Oh,
around the
really?
world.
Excellent. What's that?
Yeah.
How do you get that?
Yeah. So what you do now is when you're looking for a particular book, you put
Mhm.
PDF behind the search engine, and
Okay.
it'll let you know if the PDF can be found for free online. So I'm part of the Pan-Africans who've created entire shared Google Drive folders to share with the general populations. There's
Excellent.
literally entire Pan-African books that have been written for nearly a century. There's entire books that I have for all types of work, including for my college students. I say, hey, this entire Du Bois book, this entire Anna Julia Cooper book, this entire this entire that. I mean, we have entire books, Julius and Yare. I mean, we just have a lot of books written about Marcus Garvey that you can find for free online.
That is beautiful. That means technology is opening up that because and that's a beautiful thing. That's the tool of what technology does. I love that.
So some of
So
it's legitimate. That's why I tell
exactly.
people.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I mean, that's the thing about Black freedom. Black freedom includes access to stuff that's not factual. Freedom means you can have access to stuff that's good and bad. So I want Black folks to have a knowledgeable access to materials so that you can know that you read something and you know that the book was not factual, but it was written by a Black person. I mean, that's just the case. You know, a lot of times Black folks have this feeling like if we're an actor, we got to all be in good acting roles that depict our people amazing. No, freedom is the equality of good and bad depictions, right?
Right.
You're gonna have some bad stuff, you're gonna have some good stuff. The freedom is we get to choose either way.
Yes.
The injustice is when it's only bad stuff. So
Absolutely.
the justice is when our people can publish all types of stuff. So that's why I explain to students, you're going to have access to some Black written and Black published books that are old school. And you're going to be like, this is wrong. Right. That's how knowledge happens. You know that what you're reading is wrong. But Black folks are not the first, not the last, not the only people to say something wrong. So that's another thing I always highlight as well.
All right. So let me ask you a question. Why'd you come to Baltimore? Because you said you got here in 2019. And you know, Baltimore had what you do. You said you're a criminalist, so yeah, all of that Baltimore needs. So what made you come to this come to Charm City?
Okay. So I wanted to be close enough to my family in Richmond and far enough away so that I could, you know, have different access to different materials.
Okay.
And so it's a good space as well.
So, okay. So it wasn't the population being the demographic, which is mostly Black as of now. It wasn't because of a lot of injustices going on in Baltimore, a lot of issues with our education, the educational system here. So it wasn't none of that. That was not your draw.
No, because I tell Black folks injustices are literally everywhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So predominantly Black city, it's not as if it's more progressive. It's just it's blackface progress.
Oh.
And this literally happens. The original chocolate city that's no longer Chocolate City.
No, it's not chocolate anymore.
ATL, where they try to make Charlotte, North Carolina, become chocolate. I mean, this is the tactic, and this is also part of the funding for things like CIAA and other things. I just always encourage Black folks to understand the difference between making money and something that's really happening in terms of long-term lasting changes. Like what's really changing, you're getting money for athleticism, but are we going back to the notion that Black folks can only be musical and athletic without also understanding how athletics and music connect to sciences, mathematics, thousands of years of arts and literatures? Because like we're literally the only collective of people around the world who are told that being an athlete does not have origins of knowledge. We're the only people around the world who are told that our dancing does not come from a cultural background. And this is one thing I explain to Black students, the actor Stephen Fetchit, who became wealthy doing movies in which he played the character Stephen Fetchit. He always played, you know, the butler. Like, yeah, master, yeah. He became a millionaire in real life because he was playing that game. But I always tell Black people, when we're talking about African dancing that became Black dancing around the world racially, it's depicted as a bunch of ignorant people twerking like that doesn't have African origins. And sometimes I have this debate among fellow Pan-Africans, understanding the origins of what Black people in USA do. It's all African origins, because that's the brainwashing of being told that you have to be anti-Africa. And I tell people anti-Africa and anti-Black are synonymous.
It is.
You can't pretend that you have Western Hemisphere origins. No, you are not indigenous to the Western Hemisphere.
Okay? I hear so many people say, I'm not from Africa. I'm like, well, what tell me where you're from.
And again, that's the anti-Africa falsehood, pretending that a segment of Black folks were part of chosen migration to Western Hemisphere over thousands of years when the continents were still connected, which also downplays the role of the origins of an indigenous who would have traditionally been called Asian in terms of that migration.
Sure.
Right? And I just tell people, you know, that is the brainwashing of anti-African, anti-Black, that's saying we've always been on Western Hemisphere. No, you have not. You've not. And I also teach this. I'm like, being dark-skinned, having a large nose, large lips does not mean that you're African, does not mean that you're racial Black. You got to understand the origins of indigenous people and Asian people. Dark melanin, sometimes darker than the darkest Black person you might have seen, because we're even more susceptible to being forced into colorism. And colorism originates with the Arab colonizers. So these are all just different things when we're explaining the origins of our people, and explain that when we want changes, we have to understand the origins of a lot of things that our people consider factual.
Because I hear that a lot about, you know, Black people, well, Africans in America, saying they're not from Africa, and Africans don't like them. They always talk about the relationship between African and African American, as if and really this American thing needs to go. This diaspora, and I would say Africans and African on the continent. And I hear all the time is, I'm not from Africa, and those people don't even like us anyway. What do you think about that sentiment? Is that a way? Is that just a coping mechanism so we can dislike each other? What is that?
I mean, that's part of the centuries of anti-Africa, which became anti-Black as well. So there are divisions everywhere our people exist around the world. Black folks who are forced into this land that became United States of America are the most divided from Africa. You'll find our people in Canada, South America, Caribbean, Europe, Asia, and of course, African lands, who are more in tune with African backgrounds. That could be because of patois, language derivatives that have more direct African connections, whereas Black English, in which we've adjusted the English forced on us, it still doesn't have the African connections. We still have African connections, but it's that notion of being forced to be more and more European white, whereas around the world,
whiteness.
Yeah. And so there's anti-Africa and anti-Black around the world, which is why colorism, skin bleaching is on every land where Africans and Asians are around the world. So when people say Africans don't like us, I mean, the anti-Africa, anti-Black, it's not just one side, it's literally that division, because there's a reason why the terrorists of 5 centuries don't have to do much work anymore, because they know we're harming each other. And that also happens when we talk about chosen migration. We talk about our people, with the largest populations being Nigerians coming to United States of America, and that includes Nigerian medical and health professionals with whom I collaborate. There's a lot of times a very anti-Black notion when it comes to hiring Nigerians to work as medical and health professionals. It's this notion that you're Black enough to be hired by us, but you're not really Black. And I mean, and that happens. And so this is just one thing I explain to our people around the world. You really have to self-reflect and enter inner understand. Don't label any of our people around the world as choosing to be ignorant of African origins. I mean, here's the thing, when you're forced and you're stolen and you're forced onto a land for centuries, it's easy to say, you need to know your origins. First of all, the internet is how many years now? What, almost 30? It's a new thing, right?
Yeah, maybe about 25, 30.
This is why I tell Black people all around the world, it's easy to blame people for not knowing origins. But if you actually research our people, which includes researching African nationalists, Black nationalists, Pan-Africans, pro-Black leaders, Black power leaders, if you research 2 centuries of all this work, you're actually finding hard copies of actual letters written to each other. And some of these letters, you can find them online. Most of them are published by Congress now. So congress.gov, you can find like letters written by Du Bois. And some of the letters are horrible, but they're written because there wasn't technology. So it was writing letters to each other. So if you're thinking that people can really learn about their background when there's no access, what you think, people's gonna get on a bus, a plane, you know, people gonna get on a boat to go back? That's just not the reality. So it's easy to blame people to not know the heritage, but our people on every single land around the world have been disconnected in that regard.
Yep.
Our people everywhere around the world, including our people on West Coast Africa, who oftentimes have not tried to search around for their family members who've been forced around the world for centuries.
Wow.
So we're told that we need to know our origins, but I say, well, this is where the reciprocity has to happen. And I tell that to Pan-Africans. The origins of Pan-Africanism for more than 150 years has always been our people focusing on local and global issues so that we can connect our people who are Africans all around the world. You can't road trip to African lands and ignore the people right in your own household.
You better know.
African Pan-Africans have explained this as well, right?
I agree with that.
In Uganda are not going to say, well, Ugandans are struggling, but I'm going to go to America and help those folks. That's not how this works, okay? Yep. Same thing, Marcus Garvey explained that as well. So any group of people that dislikes, I tell people, if you dislike, that's the problem. Instead, you have to have a knowledgeable critique, because that's the division that happens on both sides. It happens when I hear Black folks in the United States of America talking about they're traveling to African nations or they're going to relocate and live in African lands. They don't really know where they're going. And this is why I tell Black folks, you have to have classes and teachings to prepare you to move, because Black folks in the United States of America do not understand the brainwashing that comes with being a descendant of centuries in the United States of America.
Yeah. It's hard to divorce American values, America, the way that we move, the things that we like, the way that we eat. You know, all of these things will change, you know, and it's very hard to do that. You have to really, really kind of prepare yourself to divorce this joint that we're in.
And that's why people have to look at the origins of what happened in Liberia. Black folks migrating after slavery. Yep. Black folks migrating from USA. They brought USA mentality, USA culture, a very white component of Africanism. And there were a lot of problems, which is why it led to, of course, eventually. These are things that just Blacks in every land have to understand, because if you're going to blame our people anywhere else without self-reflecting and seeing how we're all components of this, then that's the division. Africans are oftentimes the only people around the world who do that kind of division, whereas non-African / non-Black people around the world can have disagreements among each other while understanding oftentimes the larger purpose, the larger identities, the larger unities, the larger goals. Whereas our people, many of our people have bought into this idea that you have to really adopt this division and teach it from generation to generation and act like our people can succeed on one land on the failures of our people in another land. No, our people have to be successful everywhere, or else everything harms us all eventually. So yeah.
Powerful. That's a powerful statement right there. All people have to be whole everywhere. I think that's really, really important. So let me ask you a question. Since you're a woman of so many, oh my gosh, you're so intelligent, you got so much going on. What is your space? What do you really, really like? Do you really like sociology? Do you like the medical field? What is your thing that you like? This is my thing right here. What do you do very well?
Music.
Really?
I mean, that's not, my background is in music, art. So that's what I
I
do.
would
That's why I
never thought.
incorporate that in everything when I teach.
Really?
I also do a
Okay.
piece about art and Black health. So yeah, that's my thing is music, art,
Hmm.
lyricism.
I'm learning something here. So, do you compose music, or are you just looking for songs that are out there, or art? You create art. What do you do with music when it comes to learning?
So I used to create songs when I thought I was going to be a singer and stuff. Now I use things that are already out there, especially local works. But so yeah, so I incorporate all of it in everything that I do, and I want our people to understand how health, education, economics all connect.
Mm,
And so I tell people also that I'm going to critique everything. I don't join anything that is not up for critique, up for facts on every component. You can't join anything, you can't collaborate with anything and anyone if you're going to hide some of the factual issues that can actually be addressed. So that's also what I do. You can make a song about it. Want to hear it? Here it go. Fact remains, if you ignore factual issues and problems as Black folks, we have been taught a lot of times since childhood that as Black folks, we're not going to progress unless we just, keep our eyes on the prize,
mm-hmm,
ignore problems, and keep going. But
mm-hmm.
the problems are always going to whoop our butts.
They persist. Yes.
Yeah, and that includes problems in religious organizations,
Yes.
community-based organizations. I talked earlier about nonprofits and grant funds.
Mm-hmm.
Critiquing all of this means that you are knowledgeable, you're conscious. Africans have thousands of years of that knowledgeable intellectualism, and that does not require having a formal education. It requires having a conscious lens and knowing that you're not a member of a cult. Instead, you are African, racially Black, and you can say, I'm going to join this, but understand that my joining this means that we're going to collaborate in a factual way.
Mm.
I refuse to do something that's only partly factual.
Hmm.
Because we complain when politicians do that. We complain when police do that. We complain when medical and health professionals do that. We complain when schools do that. Therefore, we cannot do that to each other. That includes when we're talking about issues regarding domestic violence. We can talk about that when we're talking about anything that Black folks do. Change has to happen at all different forms, and that can only happen if you're prepared to have that uncomfortable fact. The uncomfortable facts do not mean that you're pausing and ending solutions. It means that, this is messed up. So we're going to address this in addition to this conclusion.
Hmm. Wow.
Because we can't, this is just the real. You can't unite and fight for what's right, not negative cause the way we live is, I'm sorry, I was going to do self-destruction, but you can't unite and fight for what's right and say we're uniting, but those bad things, they're just going to be bad.
Mm-hmm. We got to solve them first, eh?
Well,
Yeah.
like you're fighting against the oppressors and still harming each other. Like we talk about that in Baltimore City. Black folks harming each other. That's
Yep.
every racial and ethnic group of people around the world harm their own people.
Yep.
In United States of America, parts of Europe, there's a disproportionate representation based on population size of our people. Well, we're not the only people who do this, but if we're going to talk about this in Baltimore City of our people harming each other, that doesn't mean that we're stopping on overall solutions. But we can, this I tell Black folks, multitasking.
Mm-hmm.
We're not closing the door. We're saying, okay, the door is wide open because we're talking about how we deal with each other, which includes people with mental health issues, people with substance use issues, people who are suicidal, and they handle suicidal thoughts by putting themselves in altercations with the hope that they'll be killed. So I do work on that as well.
Death
So
by
these
police,
are,
suicide by police, yeah.
yeah, and suicide by cops, suicide by other altercations with our people and communities. So we don't have to hide other facts to reach goals. At the same time, we can't highlight certain facts all the time because a lot of times, a lot of Black folks don't want to hear certain facts. So we also have to understand our people to know when to pick and choose when to address certain issues. So that's the complexity and the multitasking for our people. Like, we can't always go into our spaces with our people like, I'm going to be the Debbie Downer. No, sometimes Debbie got to sit down somewhere and take notes and bring it up later.
I hear that.
And unless it's an immediate deal breaker, but if it's not an immediate deal breaker, you can't be the negative Nuru. Nuru. I can't be the negative Nuru and be like, I came here to raise some issues, yo. Because eventually ain't nobody going to see you nowhere because they don't want you there.
That's right. Sit down, Debbie.
Sit down, negative Nuru. Sit down, Debbie Downer. But I do want our people to understand that that's actually the history. Like, we have a historical foundation of our people of challenging our own people. If our people read like Harold Cruz, if you read like Dr. C.L.R. James, Marcus Garvey, all these wonderful people, Ida B. Wells, all these wonderful people have challenged our people, have not wasted time challenging the oppressors, because the oppressors are literally going to keep doing what they do because they enjoy that we're wasting time talking to them all the time instead of investing resources, money, and time in our own people. So Marcus Garvey, Harold Cruz, Du Bois, Ida B. Wells, all these people, and these are famous people. That does not even mention the non-famous, unknown, local, national, and global Africans who have done this work and you've never even heard of them.
Yeah.
Because they don't waste time talking about the oppressors because they know the oppressors want you to talk to them. The oppressors want you to spend time training them and explaining to them, because they know that now you're going to put all your time and resources there. And they might take it and they might put it in a publication and get some grant funds because they put your idea in their grant application, but they're not changing policies and practices and assessments. And they know that we're now not going to have enough time to talk to our own people about this issue.
Yeah. It is a distraction. It's absolutely a distraction. Yeah, it is a distraction. I absolutely agree. You know, the chat they on fire, sis. You know why they on fire? Because you got bars.
Really?
They're trying to say
they're not ready for the GOAT Rakim though. They're not ready.
Yeah, they're ready. I think they're ready, sis. They're ready. Brother E said, "Woo, my favorite rapper." I'm like shocked. Dr. Kimya got hip hop in her. See?
What? See, y'all don't know me. Y'all see, if y'all see me, if y'all look at my website, if you see me, you see I got Rakim shirts. I collect Rakim shirts so much that I get them
love
free.
Rakim.
That's GOAT. Like, come on now. I've been doing Rakim in my classes for 20 years.
Really? Listen, Brother E said, "Wow, can we get an acapella real quick?" He wants you to drop some bars on the box. You got that in you?
I do, but I always do. But will there be a message to send?
Yeah, you know what? Wait. We gonna hold, because you brought, it's such a blessing talking to you, because you got so much coming out of you, and I love it. You make me think. You're in love with our people, and you really have the knowledge, and that's what we need. We need our scholars. A lot of time when we're looking for some real knowledge, we want to go to rappers. We want to go to folks who are entertainers. They are not scholars, and our scholars have to be put on platforms where our scholars are who we go to for scholarship.
Well,
Thank you. Scholars.
Thank you. I consider all Africans scholars. I consider all of our people scholars. Yeah, I think that
I don't.
Yes, I do.
No.
I just believe that we have to be conscious. So like I said earlier,
we can be conscious, but not no scholars. Yeah. Scholarship takes time. You got to invest in yourself. You got to download some greatness.
Come on, what you think GOAT Rakim was doing? What you think main source was doing?
Scholar. But Lil Durk ain't.
Nikki D was doing scholarship.
I love Lil Durk, but he ain't no scholar.
But I do think that when we assess scholarship, because remember, Harold Cruz did not have that terminal degree. So Harold Cruz was not Dr. Harold Cruz.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can
I gotta
talk
look up
about.
Harold Cruz. I'm not even familiar. That's terrible.
Yeah, so I have some of Harold Cruz's books here. I'm actually
Oh, you
working on
better.
a writing
Don't
about
worry.
Harold Cruz. Harold Cruz critiqued our people in many ways, and so there's just many different components to think about our people's work. And so I just believe that knowledge and scholarship take different forms. So when I'm doing this work, I don't always put doctor in front of my name or PhD behind my name, because I'm first and foremost Kimya Nuru Dennis, born and raised in Second Capital Confederacy. Now, there are times where Black folks have acted a fool and they've mistreated me in a way that they would never do to the people who really are harming them. And there's times where my colleagues have acted a fool, because in their minds, they've been hoodwinked to believe that unless you're advertising yourself in a career-wise, then you don't have the prestige ranking. And I just tell people, my purpose in life is to challenge all forms of extremism. And extremism is on all of those sides. So that's why I want people to understand what balance means.
I'll tell you guys.
If people are offended by balance, then I'm going to keep offending balance opposers. I'll be that.
Let me tell you, she does that. She had me on the phone and she gave it to me.
Well, that's what balance is,
I actually believe it.
Yeah.
This is
and we need to understand that. I mean, that's the core. So like when we're talking about health equity, we got to understand that when we're reaching our people to talk about how to access medical and health professionals, we got to reach all of our people. You can't just find middle-class Black folk, formally educated Black folk, Black folk who are pro medical access. You got to find our people with the full span, including our people who you disagree with, including our people whose viewpoint you might find annoying, including our people whose viewpoint might believe some things are completely false. Because when you are opposed, not you, but when you, meaning we, are opposed to our people who fit something to which we disagree, then we are part of the problem. We have defined our people in a narrow scope, that there's just one belief system, there's one viewpoint, there's one religious collective, there's one normative collective, and if you don't fit that, I ain't gonna waste my time. Well, guess what? You're in the wrong line of work. You're not a community advocate. You're not helping African/Black folks. You're helping the people who already agree with you. Then why are you in this neighborhood?
You got called out, y'u
I mean, y'all could just have a family reunion. If you're gonna hang out people who are already with you, you already have these organizations that are already people who are in the same church, or already people who have the same political beliefs of, vote blue no matter who, vote red or else you're dead, or whatever nonsense people are telling Black folks.
You keep dropping bars around here. I love it.
I'm just saying, if that's what people are gonna say, regardless, and people can't handle the full scale of folks. Let me shut up so that people in the chat can get that.
I think this chat is hot. That brother E, you got him falling out over here. But we've been here for 57 minutes, and listen, I so appreciate you being a jump off. I mean, for the Power 6, this is Black Women History Month. Oh my goodness, you're a breath of fresh air. You come in, I like it. You attack everybody, not attack, but you put the we're not gonna say attack.
Unless it's like a
no attack.
You can do like a cipher battle freestyle.
That information on everybody. But after BlaKBox Radio, this is what we do. Let me tell you, you got to leave a jewel with the people, right? So you got to leave Kimya's jewel. So we want some of them bars. So let's get that jewel going. I need a jewel from you. Leave Kimya's jewel, damn it. Talk to us.
Here's gonna be my non-lyrical jewel.
Oh Lord.
It's gonna be non-lyrical.
It's not fair.
Pretend it's poetry that doesn't rhyme, okay? Poetry, it's me. All right. So Black folks, non-Black people do not need to rescue us. We do not need to be reliant upon non-Black people. We can collaborate with non-Black people, but it's not because our people are ignorant, unintelligent, incapable, non-collaborative, and lacking resources. We existed in terms of human life and intelligence and knowledge before transatlantic slavery, before colonialism, before religious missionaries.
Mm-hmm.
Our identities and realities and existences existed before we were forced onto Western Hemisphere and parts of the world through transatlantic slavery. Therefore, I need to see what our people are going to work on together. Because our people understand certain collaborations quite well. We understand certain collaborations, especially when there's an immediate outcome in terms of making money. Right? And so I also want to highlight this because we have to understand that there's a lot of division among our people because a lot of our people feel like to make changes, you have to express certain terms and concepts. Like you have to talk about imperialism, capitalism, this, and this. They're going to be our people who don't understand what you're talking about. And there are also many of our people who are capitalists, dating back to Frederick Douglass, Booker T. Washington, Marcus Garvey had that component of capitalism because trailblazer for him was Booker T. Washington. So you have to understand what it means to collaborate with our people, even if the concepts and approach that you have does not fit in line with what they have.
Whoa, that's a word right there. That's an absolute word.
So it's important to read, it's important to write, but it's not important if you're not out there seeing what it looks like in real life. And this is one thing I tell my students. Concepts, theories, it's based on what we do in research. I'm a theorist. I have 15 years of teaching theory and constructing theory. But I tell students, it doesn't matter if you personally like a theory. What matters is how this theory can be researched. We don't just apply theories in action in terms of real life. You don't do something in real life and say, see, this theory works. That's not really how we do theories. We actually do them in terms of research. And you can find that a theory might not hold place like you thought. We have thousands of years of millions of theories. So I don't care about people talking to me about theories. I don't care about people talking to me about their concept or their framework that they thought was so awesome. I don't care about people talking to me about their political party either. I want people to tell me, what does this really look like? And how are you proving it?
That's your jewel. Is that how you feel?
I'm not signing off on something just because people like it. What does it really look like? And that's just one thing. Pretend that, we got Goat Rakim in the background, talking about 21 MCs. Don't be one of them 7 MCs. One of those 7 MCs are MCs who really think they did something because you spew in concepts and theories. But when it comes to action, the action does not have an outcome that you bet on. And you still hold on to that concept and theory, though. I tell people, let that go. It's another love TKO. Now let's see what else you can do.
I love it. Dr. Kimya, you just threw some Teddy Pendergrass. I love it. I just love it. All this music, all this bars. Listen, we've seen a lot of you tonight, and that's a blessing. You have other parts. So I'm glad we were able to platform that. We really appreciate you being in our Power 6, the beginning, Black Women History Month at BlaKBoXX Radio. Listen, I want you guys to please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's BlaKBoXX Space Radio. That's BLakBoXX Space Radio. Subscribe. Let's build this thing. This is a Black thing. We're trying to empower Black people. Please tell your friends, tell everyone. Subscribe to BlaKBoXX Radio. We got 6 other women, and sorry, I got a bug. We got 5 other women. Excuse me. We got 5 other women coming. This is the beginning. This is the jump off. We had an MC tonight. I thought I had a doctor. I had an MC tonight. Dr. MC Kimya.
It's the diggy doc, y'all.
Okay. I so appreciate you, sis. Thanks for coming through. BlaKBoXXers, we are boxed up and out. Good night. Don't go nowhere, Kimya. Good night, guys. Let me get them deuces. Deuces. Let me get them deuces. Yes, sir. We gone. Peace.